Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring shadows and whispers and maybe even something a little more sinister lurking in a school basement. You shared a podcast episode with me about this case, focusing on the experiences of Jason Brooks in Pennsylvania. Let's dive in.
This case is so intriguing because it goes beyond a simple ghost story. It really blends personal experience with historical research, raising all sorts of questions about the nature of reality and, what might linger in places with a troubled past.
The story starts with Jason as a middle schooler. He's asked to move some supplies to the school basement.
Right.
Seems ordinary enough, right?
Uh-huh.
Until you realize this basement already has a reputation for strange occurrences and whispers of shadows moving on their own.
That's a really good setup for a spooky story. It creates this immediate sense of anticipation. The fact that this basement already has this spooky reputation just makes Jason's experiences even more unsettling.
And Jason and his friends actually see a shadow moving in the basement where there shouldn't be anyone. I mean, I would be totally freaked out. What's fascinating is that they see the shadow multiple times even when they turn the lights off and on.
This recurring visual is very important. It moves beyond a simple trick of the light or a fleeting glimpse. The fact that they see it repeatedly suggests that there's something more persistent, something that might be tied to the location itself.
Right, it's not just a one-time scare. And then things get even creepier when Jason starts hearing noises in the empty school after hours. Footsteps echoing in the basement when it should be completely silent.
The auditory element adds another layer to the experience, so it's no longer just visual. It's starting to affect Jason's other senses, creating a more immersive and unsettling experience.
And then it gets even spookier. Jason starts having these incredibly vivid nightmares about the basement, featuring the same shadowy figure he saw in person. And his friends who were with him in the basement, they start having the same nightmares. What could that possibly mean?
The shared nightmares are really interesting. It suggests a possible psychic link between Jason, his friends, and whatever presence might be in the basement. This could indicate something more than just a haunting, perhaps some form of energy or entity that can interact with the minds of those who are sensitive to it.
This case takes a really interesting turn when Jason decides to do some research at the local library.
Okay.
He uncovers some old records about the school and finds out that 2 students went missing from the basement back in 1947, never to be found.
This discovery adds a historical dimension to the mystery. It suggests the possible connection between the missing students and the shadows that Jason and his friends encountered. Makes you wonder if these shadows could be some kind of residual energy, an echo of a past trauma.
That's a chilling thought. And Jason, of course, decides to go back to the basement and things get even weirder. This time he sees dusty handprints appear on a window pane when there are no children around.
The handprints are a very physical manifestation. It adds another layer of evidence to the growing mystery. They suggest an interaction with the physical environment, which goes beyond simply sensing a presence.
And then he hears laughter coming from a dark corner of the basement. All of these sensory details, the sights, the sounds, they create such a creepy atmosphere.
It's like the basement is coming alive, revealing more and more of its secrets as Jason continues to explore. That laughter in particular is unsettling. It suggests a playful or even malicious intelligence behind these events.
Jason's experiences eventually attract the attention of Dr. Evelyn Moore, a researcher who studies mysterious energies. They decide to go back to the basement together, armed with equipment to measure electromagnetic energy and capture any strange sounds. What do they find when they bring in the scientific instruments?
This is where the investigation becomes much more structured and scientific. Dr. Moore's expertise adds a level of credibility to these claims and allows for a more objective analysis of the phenomena.
Well, Dr. Moore's equipment picks up unusually high energy readings in certain areas of the basement, and they even capture a faint whisper on a recording that says, "Leave."
That's fascinating. The whisper adds another layer of evidence suggesting that there might be something conscious or intelligent at work here.
They also capture the voices of 2 children whispering to each other on the recording. This seems to strengthen the connection to those missing students from 1947. Do you think it's possible that their presence is still lingering in the basement all these years later?
It's certainly a possibility. The voices combined with the earlier evidence suggest that these missing students might be somehow connected to the events that are unfolding.
As they delve deeper into the school's past, they start uncovering chilling details about the principal from 1947, a man named George Whitaker. Apparently, he was known for being extremely strict and often carried out punishments in the basement. There are even reports of students disappearing under his watch, though no official records exist.
The emergence of Principal Whitaker as a key figure adds another layer of intrigue. It suggests that the events in the basement might be linked to his actions. And perhaps those actions were even more sinister than anyone realized at the time.
This is where the story gets even more unsettling. Jason and Dr. Moore decide to use a Ouija board in the basement to try to communicate with whatever presence might be there.
That's a bold move. Ouija boards have always been surrounded by controversy and speculation, but using one in this investigation highlights the commitment to exploring every avenue to understand these phenomena.
And they actually get responses. Messages like, "We are trapped," and "Help us," appear on the board. Then, as if on cue, the lights go out and they hear childlike laughter echoing in the darkness.
This direct communication, if taken at face value, is incredibly chilling. It suggests that whatever is trapped in the basement is aware of their presence and is seeking their help. The laughter, however, adds a layer of ambiguity. Is it a genuine expression of relief or a more sinister form of manipulation?
They manage to escape the basement, but it's a close call. They feel something cold breathing down their necks as they run and hear whispers urging them to come back.
This near escape emphasizes the growing sense of danger. It's no longer just about uncovering the truth. It's becoming clear that whatever they've encountered has the potential to harm them.
And when they go back to the basement, they find a new door has mysteriously appeared.
This is a significant development. It suggests that whatever force is at work in the basement is capable of manipulating the physical environment. The appearance of a new door implies that there are secrets yet to be uncovered, hidden areas waiting to be explored. The appearance of this new door, it really changes things, doesn't it? It suggests that the basement holds even more secrets than they initially thought. And those secrets, well, they're being revealed gradually as if something is guiding them towards the truth.
Yeah, and they cautiously open the door and find this small room. But it's not just any room, it's covered in writing, like frantic writing scratched into the walls. Messages like, "They're coming, help us, we must escape." Oh, and the phrase, "The principal lied," etched deeply into the wood. What do you make of these messages?
These messages provide a glimpse into the minds of those who are trapped in the basement. The desperation, the fear, it's palpable. The phrase, "the principal lied," is particularly intriguing. It suggests that Principal Whitaker might have been deceiving the students, perhaps promising them safety or a way out while leading them into a trap.
It paints a really disturbing picture of what might have happened down there, and they find more than just writing in this hidden room. There's also a metal box filled with documents written by Principal Whitaker himself dating back to 1947. In these notes, he mentions needing to teach a lesson to two students who tried to escape the school.
These documents offer a window into Whitaker's mindset. The language he uses suggests a disturbing level of control and a belief that he had the right to punish these students in any way he saw fit. It hints at a motive, a darker motive, beyond simple discipline.
Lights flicker back on, and just before they leave the hidden room, they hear a voice. It says, "Thank you." They quickly leave the basement, but that voice, it leaves them with more questions than answers.
This moment is hopeful and unsettling at the same time. The thank you could be a genuine expression of gratitude for uncovering the truth, but it could also be a deceptive tactic, meant to lull them into a false sense of security.
Even though things seem to be moving towards some kind of resolution, Jason continues to have nightmares about the basement. He sees Principal Whitaker, he hears the children's voices. It leaves him with this unsettling feeling that they're still waiting for something, or perhaps for someone to help them.
This recurring nightmare suggests that the events in the basement have deeply affected Jason on a psychological level. It could be a manifestation of his own trauma, or a sign that the entity they encountered is still trying to communicate with him.
Jason and Dr. Moore continue their investigation, determined to uncover the full truth about the missing students and what role Principal Whitaker might have played in their disappearance. They discover a chilling pattern over the years. Multiple students vanished from the school, and each time one of the basement classrooms was sealed off.
This pattern, it's just too coincidental, isn't it? It points to a deliberate attempt to cover up something sinister. The sealed classrooms become symbolic. They represent the secrets buried within the school walls, the hidden truths that someone desperately wanted to keep hidden.
They even visit the granddaughter of one of the missing students, Eleanor Johnson. The granddaughter shares that her grandmother had spoken about the school with terror, mentioning seeing something in the basement that scared her.
This first-hand account, from a relative of a missing student, it adds a personal touch to the narrative. It reminds us that these events are not just abstract occurrences, but real-life tragedies. These events had a devastating impact on families and the community.
Driven by this personal connection, Jason and Dr. Moore decide to venture back into the basement, this time with more recording equipment. They're hoping to capture more evidence, to find something that will finally convince the school board to take action.
Their determination to uncover the truth, despite the risks, is admirable, but it also highlights the danger they're facing. The deeper they delve into this mystery, the more they expose themselves to the entity's influence.
They find the door to the hidden room is now shut tight, as if something doesn't want them to enter. But they manage to push it open, and as they step inside, they hear a chilling message. "He's still here. Don't let him out." The voice seems to be coming from the walls themselves, as if the room itself is trying to warn them.
This warning, it definitely raises the stakes. It suggests that whatever force is at work in the basement is not only still present, it's potentially dangerous and capable of escaping. It implies that Whitaker, in some form, is still connected to this place.
And the lights go out and they're plunged into darkness. Footsteps circle them in the dark, slow and deliberate, as if something is toying with them. Then in the corner of the room, they see this tall figure with glowing red eyes. It's unlike anything they've ever seen before.
This is the first direct visual encounter with an entity that goes beyond shadows and whispers. The glowing red eyes are particularly menacing. They're often associated with malevolent beings in folklore and mythology. This encounter suggests that they're dealing with something far more powerful and dangerous than they initially realized.
Dr. Moore, ever the scientist, tries to communicate with the figure. "Who are you?" she asks. But the voice responds with a chilling whisper. "You shouldn't know." The experience is so terrifying that they panic and run, barely escaping the basement, the sound of the figure's laughter echoing behind them.
This encounter highlights the limitations of their understanding. They are attempting to apply logic and reason to a situation that defies explanation. The figure's response, "you shouldn't know," suggests that there are certain truths that are beyond human comprehension, certain secrets that are better left buried.
They review the footage from that encounter and are shocked by what they see. The camera captured a shadowy humanoid figure staring directly into the lens, its eyes glowing red. The audio recordings pick up whispers repeating, "Don't let him out," followed by this deep, menacing laugh that seems to vibrate through their bones.
This tangible evidence, captured on camera and audio, is crucial. It validates their experiences. It proves that they weren't simply imagining things. It also provides further insight into the entity's nature. The repeated phrase, "don't let him out," suggests that it is imprisoned or contained in some way, and its release could have catastrophic consequences.
Determined to understand what they're dealing with, Jason and Dr. Moore delve even deeper into their research. They start focusing on Principal Whitaker's past. They uncover disturbing details about his reputation for using harsh punishments and his obsession with controlling the students.
This focus on Whitaker's past is essential. It provides context for the current events and suggests that the entity they're facing might be connected to Whitaker's personality, his actions, or perhaps even his darkest desires.
They find records of the missing students in Whitaker's personal files, but there's no mention of these disappearances in any official school records or reports to authorities. It's like he was operating outside the law, using his position of power to silence those who might expose him.
This deliberate concealment of evidence suggests a conspiracy, perhaps involving other individuals who were complicit in Whitaker's actions, or at least aware of what was happening and chose to turn a blind eye. It raises questions about the nature of power and the corruption that can occur when individuals are allowed to operate without accountability.
On their next visit to the basement, Dr. Moore notices strange symbols drawn on the walls. She believes they were part of a ritual performed by Principal Whitaker. The symbols are complex and unsettling, a mixture of geometric shapes, arcane symbols, and what appear to be ancient runes.
The presence of these ritualistic symbols suggests that Whitaker was dabbling in something beyond conventional discipline. It points toward the possibility of occult practices, an attempt to harness supernatural forces for his own purposes.
Dr. Moore concludes that the energy in the basement isn't just residual energy from the past. It's something intelligent, something that was created and is waiting for a chance to escape. She fears that they've unintentionally awakened something that should have been left undisturbed.
This realization is a significant turning point in the investigation. It elevates the threat from a traditional haunting to something far more dangerous and unpredictable. It suggests that they are dealing with a conscious entity with its own agenda, one that might be beyond their ability to control.
And wouldn't you know it, the phenomena start spreading beyond the basement. Shadows appear in mirrors throughout the school. People hear children's laughter echoing through the empty hallways, and staff members report seeing the shadowy figure with glowing red eyes in their homes.
This spread of paranormal activity indicates that whatever was contained in the basement is now breaking free. It suggests a loss of control, an escalation of the entity's power, a widening circle of influence that threatens to engulf the entire town.
Things get so bad that Dr. Moore decides to call in an expert on ancient rituals, Professor Henry Callaway. He studied supernatural phenomena in historic locations around the world. He might have the knowledge they need to contain the entity before it's too late.
Bringing in Professor Callaway signifies a recognition that they need outside help. It acknowledges that they're dealing with forces beyond their current understanding and require specialized knowledge to effectively combat the escalating threat.
Professor Callaway arrives and immediately immerses himself in the case, studying the symbols, reviewing the evidence, listening intently to Jason and Dr. Moore's accounts of their experiences. He seems to understand the gravity of the situation, the urgency of their mission.
Professor Callaway's expertise adds a new dimension to the investigation. His knowledge of ancient rituals, symbolism, and the history of the occult provides a framework for understanding the events that are unfolding and suggests potential strategies for containment.
After carefully considering all the evidence, Professor Callaway confirms Dr. Moore's suspicions. The symbols in the basement are indeed part of a ritual. He believes Principal Whitaker was attempting to summon something, or perhaps bind something to the school.
This confirmation validates their fears and reinforces the idea that they are dealing with a deliberate act of magic, an attempt to manipulate supernatural forces. It also suggests that Whitaker's motivations might have been far more complex and sinister than they initially realized.
Professor Callaway believes that the shadow they encounter, the entity with the glowing red eyes, might be the result of the ritual going wrong. Or even more disturbingly, it might be exactly what Whitaker intended to create, a powerful entity fueled by the energy of trapped souls.
This chilling possibility adds a new layer of horror to the story. It suggests that Whitaker was not simply a cruel or abusive figure, but a sorcerer, a man who dabbled in dark forces and unleashed something terrible into the world.
Professor Callaway proposes a risky plan to try to contain the entity and prevent it from spreading further, a reversing ritual. It's a complex and dangerous ceremony, one that could backfire and make the situation even worse if they don't get it exactly right.
The introduction of this reversing ritual as a potential solution creates a sense of anticipation and hope, but it also highlights the risks involved. It's a delicate balance between containment and escalation, with the fate of the town hanging in the balance.
They know they can't just ignore the problem. If they do nothing, the entity might consume the entire town. So they decide to take the risk and perform the ritual on the night of the full moon. They gather all the necessary tools and return to the basement, prepared for a final confrontation with the darkness that has taken root in their town.
Their decision reflects their growing sense of urgency and responsibility. They recognize that inaction is not an option, that they must take a proactive approach, even if it means facing considerable danger, to protect the community from the escalating threat.
As they descend into the basement on that fateful night, the air is thick with anticipation and dread. They know that their lives will never be the same. They are about to enter a battle against forces beyond their comprehension, a battle that will test their courage, their beliefs, and the very limits of their humanity.
Their descent into the basement is symbolic of their descent into the depths of the unknown. It's a journey into the heart of darkness, a confrontation with the primal fears that lurk within us all.
The reversing ritual begins, and the basement comes alive with a surge of energy. The air crackles with static electricity, the shadows deepen and lengthen, and the temperature plummets, as if the very walls are bracing themselves for the coming storm.
This immediate and dramatic response to the ritual underscores the power they're dealing with. The basement, once a place of mundane storage, has transformed into a nexus of supernatural energy, a battleground between the forces of light and darkness.
The atmosphere in the basement, it's electric as Professor Callaway begins this reversing ritual. The air grows heavy, almost suffocating, and the shadows, they seem to writhe and pulsate as if they're alive. It's like the entire room is holding its breath, just waiting to see what will happen.
This heightened sense of anticipation, it's pretty common in these types of rituals and ceremonies that are designed to interact with supernatural forces. The manipulation of energy, the invocation of ancient symbols, and that focus on intent creates a vortex of power. And that can have unpredictable effects.
The ground beneath their feet, it begins to tremble, and then they hear this chorus of voices, a mixture of laughter and screams echoing through the basement. It's the voices of the children, their cries of fear and despair just mingling with that sinister laughter of the entity that holds them captive.
The manifestation of the children's voices, well, that adds a visceral element to the experience, doesn't it? It's a reminder that this is not just an abstract battle against an unseen force. This is a fight for the souls of innocent victims. The laughter, though, that suggests that the entity is not simply a malevolent spirit. It's something more complex, perhaps even deriving some kind of twisted pleasure from the suffering it inflicts.
And then the shadows appear. They're swirling and coalescing into distinct forms. The figures of the children who vanished from the school over the years. Their eyes glow with this eerie light, their expressions a mixture of fear and anger, their voices a haunting chorus. It sends chills down their spines.
The appearance of the children's shadows is such a powerful visual representation of the entity's hold over them. It suggests that their souls are trapped, their energy siphoned off to fuel the entity's existence. The glowing eyes and the expressions of fear and anger suggest that they are both victims and instruments of the entity's will, caught in this terrifying limbo between life and death.
The shadows, they surround them, closing in as the ritual reaches its climax. The temperature drops so dramatically that they can see their breath. The air crackles with static electricity. It feels like the very walls of the basement are closing in on them. The shadows pressing against them, their whispers growing louder, more insistent, as if they're trying to break through Professor Calloway's protective barrier.
This intensification of the supernatural phenomena suggests a struggle for control. The entity, it senses the threat posed by the reversing ritual, right? And is fighting back, attempting to disrupt the ceremony and maintain its hold over the trapped souls.
And then, this large, imposing shadow, it detaches itself from the group of children and moves towards them. It's Principal Whitaker, his form more solid than ever before, his eyes burning with an infernal red light, his expression twisted into a mask of rage and defiance. "You have no right to end this," he roars, his voice echoing through the basement, shaking the very foundations of the school.
Whitaker's appearance at this critical moment, it confirms his connection to the entity. And it shows us his determination to maintain control over the trapped souls. His anger and defiance suggests this sense of ownership, as if he believes he has a right to claim these souls as his own.
Dr. Moore, her voice trembling but her resolve unwavering, stands up to Whitaker. "We're here to free the children," she declares, her words echoing through the charged atmosphere. "They don't deserve to be trapped like this. You have to let them go."
Dr. Moore's courage in confronting Whitaker is admirable. Her words represent a challenge to his authority, a refusal to accept his twisted version of reality. It's a clash of wills, a battle between empathy and indifference, compassion and cruelty.
But Whitaker just laughs. It's a chilling, hollow sound that seems to mock her compassion, her belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. "The children are mine," he declares, his voice dripping with this possessive malice that sends chills down their spines. "They are the key to limitless power, and you will never free them."
Whitaker's laughter and his words, they reveal his true nature, a cold, calculating entity that feeds off the suffering of others. His claim of ownership over the children's souls is a testament to his arrogance and his complete lack of empathy. He sees them not as individuals, but as tools to be used, their energy a means to an end.
As Whitaker advances towards them, his form shifting and shimmering like a heat haze, his eyes burning with this unholy light, Dr. Moore realizes they have to act quickly. They can't let him get any closer or all will be lost. She turns to Professor Calloway, her eyes pleading for guidance, for a solution.
This moment of desperation highlights the high stakes of their mission. The fate of the children, the fate of the town, perhaps even the fate of their own souls, it's hanging in the balance. They are facing a force of darkness that threatens to consume everything in its path.
Professor Calloway, his face etched with concern, but his voice calm and steady, nods to Dr. Moore. "It's time," he says, handing her a small, intricately carved talisman. "Use this. Focus your intent on breaking his connection to the shadows, on severing the ties that bind him to this world."
The talisman. It's a symbol of ancient power and protection, isn't it? It represents their last hope. A tool that can amplify their intent, focusing their energy and channeling it towards a specific purpose.
With a deep breath and a surge of adrenaline, Dr. Moore takes the talisman and begins chanting a different incantation, one that Professor Calloway taught her, one that's designed to disrupt the flow of energy, to sever the bonds that hold Whitaker and the children captive.
This shift in strategy reflects their adaptability and their willingness to embrace unconventional methods. They're stepping outside the boundaries of traditional science. They're embracing the power of ancient rituals and beliefs, recognizing that sometimes the only way to fight darkness is with darkness.
At first, it seems like the incantation is working. The smaller shadows begin to flicker and fade, their forms dissolving like mist in the morning sun. And Whitaker's figure stumbles, his outline blurring as if he's losing his grip on the physical world.
This glimmer of hope, it creates a sense of anticipation and relief. But it's quickly overshadowed by the growing sense that Whitaker is not easily defeated. His struggle against the incantation suggests a desperate fight for survival, a willingness to unleash the full extent of his power to maintain his control over the trapped souls.
But just as it seems like victory might be within reach, Whitaker lets out this ear-splitting scream, a sound of pure rage and defiance that reverberates through the basement, shaking the very foundations of the school. The shadows, sensing his desperation, surge forward, their forms coalescing into a single monstrous entity that lunges at Dr. Moore with a ferocity that takes her breath away.
This dramatic turn of events underscores the unpredictable nature of the forces they're dealing with. Whitaker's desperate counterattack, it demonstrates his resilience and his willingness to fight to the death, reminding them that even in his weakened state, he remains a formidable opponent. The merging of the shadows into a single entity creates a visual representation of his growing power and the terrifying consequences of their interference.
Thinking quickly, Dr. Moore, in a moment of selfless bravery, throws herself in front of Professor Calloway, taking the full brunt of the entity's attack. The impact knocks her to the ground, the air knocked from her lungs, her vision blurring. But even as pain shoots through her body, she manages to raise the talisman, focusing her remaining strength, her will to fight, her desperate hope for the children's freedom into a single, powerful surge of energy.
Dr. Moore's act of self-sacrifice is a testament to her courage and her unwavering commitment to protecting the innocent. She is willing to risk her own life to give the children a chance at freedom, to disrupt the cycle of darkness that has plagued the school for so long.
The talisman, responding to her desperate plea, her unwavering intent, erupts in this blinding flash of light. The basement is filled with a sound like thunder. The air crackles with energy and the shadows recoil as if burned by the intensity of the light. The entity, caught in the blast, screams in agony, its form twisting and contorting, its grip on the children's souls weakening with each passing second.
This dramatic climax highlights the power of human will and the enduring strength of compassion in the face of overwhelming darkness. The talisman, a symbol of ancient power and protection, acts as a conduit for Dr. Moore's intent, amplifying her energy and channeling it towards a specific purpose: the disruption of Whitaker's control over the trapped souls.
And then, as quickly as it began, the light fades, leaving behind a silence that seems to ring in their ears. The shadows have vanished. The air is still. The temperature begins to rise. The only sound is the echo of their own ragged breaths and the rapid beating of their hearts. Dr. Moore lies on the floor, the talisman shattered beside her, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. Jason and Professor Calloway rush to her side, their minds racing, their emotions a jumbled mix of relief and fear.
This sudden shift from chaos to stillness creates a sense of suspended animation, a moment of reflection after the intensity of the ritual. The silence, once oppressive and menacing, now feels almost sacred, a testament to the power of the forces they have just witnessed and the fragility of human existence.
Is she? Jason begins, his voice choked with emotion, but Professor Calloway silences him with a gentle hand on his shoulder. She's alive, he says, his voice reassuringly calm. She's just exhausted. She gave a lot of herself to that ritual. He carefully lifts Dr. Moore, cradling her in his arms, and turns to Jason. We need to get her out of here, he says. This place, it's not safe. Not anymore.
Professor Calloway's words carry a weight of experience and wisdom. He recognizes the toll the ritual has taken on Dr. Moore, both physically and emotionally, and he understands that the basement, once a place of confinement and suffering, has become a battleground between powerful forces that are beyond human comprehension.
They carefully make their way out of the basement, their steps echoing through the empty hallways. The air heavy with the lingering scent of ozone and a faint metallic tang that clings to their clothes and hair. They emerge into the cool night air, the full moon casting long, distorted shadows across the schoolyard.
This imagery of shadows and moonlight evokes a sense of liminality, like a transition between worlds. A reminder that the boundaries between the seen and unseen are often blurred, especially in places where darkness has taken root.
As they drive away from the school, Dr. Moore stirs in the back seat, her eyes fluttering open. Did it work?
she whispers, her voice hoarse but filled with a desperate hope.
Dr. Moore's first words reflect her unwavering concern for the children. Even in her weakened state, her thoughts are with those she sought to protect, her heart heavy with the burden of their suffering.
I think so, Jason replies, his voice trembling with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. I don't feel them anymore. The shadows, they're gone. He looks back at the school, its dark silhouette looming against the moonlit sky. A chill runs down his spine despite the warmth of the car's interior. But something tells me this isn't over, he says, his voice barely a whisper. I think he's still out there, somewhere, waiting. This sense of foreboding, this lingering feeling that the entity is not truly gone, it creates an open ending, doesn't it? Leaves the listener with a sense of unease and anticipation. Suggests that the battle for Greenville is far from over, that the forces of darkness are patient, persistent, and that the fight for the souls of the innocent is a never-ending struggle.
And that concludes our deep dive into the chilling tale of the shadow in the school basement. This story, a blend of personal experience, historical research, and supernatural phenomena, it challenges us to confront our fears, to question our beliefs, and to acknowledge the existence of forces beyond our comprehension.
Indeed. This case serves as a reminder that darkness can take many forms. Evil can hide in plain sight. And sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not the ones we imagine, but the ones that reside within the human heart, driven by greed, ambition, and a thirst for power that knows no bounds.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the shadows. We hope you've enjoyed our exploration of this unsettling tale. Until next time, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, sometimes the most frightening stories are the ones that whisper the truth.